It's Talk Erie and the Joel Natale Show, live from our Kingdom Financial Group studio here at 5th and State. Also live on Facebook and on YouTube, having the crucial conversations that Erie needs. And we want to welcome back the historian and political analyst, Dr. Jeffrey Bloodworth of Gannon University. And we're following up on an article that was published in Real Clear, Pennsylvania. And Dr. Bloodworth, let me state the title: Erie portends an ominous path for Pennsylvania's GOP. Welcome. Good to see you.
It's great to be here.
I appreciate it. All right. You've been getting quite a bit of ink in places like, the Real Clear Pennsylvania, Real Clear Politics. Did you get some political action too at some point? Or I think so, right?
Well, I'm a contributing editor now for Real Clear Pennsylvania.
For Real Clear. Okay.
Yeah.
Wow. Awesome. And of course, you're quoted around the country and certainly locally. And so let's remind our listeners, roll back to this municipal election, because honestly, we got to go back to May to kind of feel the original earthquake, don't we?
Yeah, we saw an incumbent mayor, go down to defeat. You didn't have a big turnout in May, and so I don't think anybody saw a 44% turnout in the municipal election in November.
Yeah.
And I believe the Pennsylvania turnout rate was even higher than it was in Erie, which was surprising.
Okay, so first off, when you think about the May election, it wasn't that many people who made that kind of seismic choice especially for mayor, right? And also though, for Erie County executive.
Yeah, on both hands.
Yeah. On the Democratic side, really first, right?
Yeah, no. I think most people who were clued in thought that Perry would win, and then Christina Vogel, I think, surprised most everyone by winning, and kind of substantially. And I think it foreshadowed outsiders and a sense of kind of public unrest with the state of affairs. It's a continuation of 2024. To say that Erie is a bellwether in November where the Democrats did well, not only just in Erie but nationally, is a sign that Democrats are doing well, I think is a mistake. It shows that voters, there's a continuation. Voters are not happy. And so if you're in office, you're in trouble in 2024, and that was the Democrats. And if you were in office in 2025 and you're Republican, you were in trouble. And so
already, I mean, like a first thesis would be the conclusion that this was a blue wave because of blue policy is not necessarily accurate.
Oh, absolutely not. This is not pro-Democratic Party. This is anti-Republicans. And I think sending a message to Trump of focus on the meat and potatoes instead of the antics, which is, I think, in people's memory, the first Trump term delivered a better economy, and it did by every metric. And I think the first year of the Trump administration has been, for a lot of his core supporters, policies that they like. But I think we saw in November that there are a lot of people who turned out who aren't happy. And Republican turnout was depressed, which is a sign. If your party's in power and you don't turn out, that is also a signal that you're not particularly happy with what your party is doing. And so Democrats were jazzed, Republicans were depressed, and it was a Democratic wave.
Oh, okay. So you roll forward to November, and here in Erie County, we saw pretty much, if you had an R next to your name, you lost, except for like those smaller townships where, they're basically red bastions. And in the significant county council race, you had Charlie Bale win, as expected, yet not to the breadth that we thought he would win. And I mean, even in Mill Creek, where you had the D, Kylie Morris, beat a very popular Republican in Mill Creek Township, which was Harry Morgan, who everybody kind of thought it was a foregone conclusion. Any thoughts on that race?
I was really surprised. I mean, Harry Morgan, it's a brand name, right?
Yes,
in Mill Creek.
right,
I mean, you see the signs, you know the name. This is a relative, outsider, newcomer to politics who not just won, but won relatively convincingly. And this is
because he also beat an incumbent, Dan Olet.
Yeah, I mean,
in the spring.
Yeah, there is a mood, and she didn't just win by a little; she won by a significant amount. And this is not because people are endorsing the Democratic Party; it's because people want something different. It's a continuation of 2024, not an aberration. It's just this time the Republicans are in power, and they're the ones who are taking it on the chin.
Rabbit trail on Mill Creek. I want to get your sense on the Government Study Commission, because I literally thought that pro study commission would lean R, and I was again dumbfounded at kind of the overwhelming support for the Government Study Commission.
You can almost always in American political life bet on stasis, things staying the same. I was stunned that it won, and it won relatively convincingly.
Yeah.
Because most of the time people go to the polls and they're like, I don't understand this, I'm voting no. Instead, I think a lot of people went to the polls and said, I don't understand this, but I don't like the status quo. And look, they did a good job of educating the public as well. So there were a lot of people who knew what they were voting for, but a lot of voters show up, not fully understanding the ins and outs, but it tells you like voters are unhappy.
Yeah, the percentage of turnout in Mill Creek was kind of like a leader for some of the other races that were affected. I mean, certainly the Vogel race, again, higher turnout in Mill Creek meant Vogel did better. I mean, do you see my confusion?
Yeah, our entire lives, suburban turnout is high, Republicans do well. And now, suburban vote goes high, Democrats do well. Yeah. And Vogel captured, I think, a significant portion of kind of regular Republican voters, probably 10, 15, 20%. I mean, her margin of victory was that wide. But back to your point, I mean, the suburbs used to be Republican bastions.
Yeah.
And that's no longer the case.
So interesting. Do you have a take on, just one more note on Mill Creek. Do you have a take on Mill Creek politics? Because, again, they see, we have divisive politics. We have, fisticuffs, if you will, that go on in most elections. You have back and forth. Mill Creek politics seem to be a special kind of, I wouldn't say nasty, but literally pretty rough and tumble politics there. Do you see any distinction between that and what else, other parts of this community here, between like Mill Creek and other places,
and how it mirrors the
or that it's a little bit different, a little bit more rough and tumble, if you will? Well, especially like the school board is always kind of a bone of contention from a lot of people.
Yeah, I mean, you have. Look, it's the suburbs. You have slightly more kind of educated population that's slightly more engaged. You have a recurring cast of characters
that's true.
who probably get a little tired of each other. I mean, Those are the ingredients where it becomes about policy and it's about personality. And also, I think in Mill Creek, you can just think about the entrance of Presque Isle and the kind of, development has been stalled, I think that's reasonable to say. And, you can drive through Mill Creek and think, man, I do that. And I think, I wish X were there. How can we have more visitors to Presque Isle than Yellowstone?
right. Yeah. And not have these you don't see the assets that you would think you would supposed to have. Yeah.
Sheets is great, but maybe a different eating choice outside.
That's right. Made to order, right? That's fascinating. So I think it's really an interesting takeaway that you're saying here, because I want to broaden this out after the break, because I want to talk about where Erie's going to turn out to be a bellwether here, but I want you to comment before we take the break on the Vogel Davis race. Is there anything there that is just about the two personalities there, and maybe even the addition of Kathy Dahlkemper as kind of the power behind a lot of the Vogel policy decisions and things?
Well, Vogel is a newcomer to Erie County politics, and I would assume Kathy Dahlkemper is a brand name, and having Kathy Dahlkemper as a campaign surrogate surely helped give her an endorsement by a brand name. And I think, I mean, to me, it shows that kind of the Trump kind of sense of personality and the show that is Washington, D.C. In Congress now, you win primaries and you win re-election for being a personality more than you do for passing legislation or providing constituent service. And at least locally, that didn't seem to be the case in 2025. Voters wanted the county executive, it seemed to me, that they're like, we'll talk to you in 4 years. We want to read about what you're doing, but not necessarily about you in the newspaper. And so I think that is a zag to where we're going nationally in our politics, like anti-personality, pro-good governance.
So am I to understand that you feel like that Bretton Davis was too much of a personality, that the person of Davis got in the way of maybe even some good policy choices?
Without a doubt. I think he's a disruptor. However, and I think that sense of being a disruptor overshadowed, the very real accomplishments that he had. I mean, my understanding is there was more money for first responders.
Yeah.
I mean, we think about, there are many people who don't like Project Clear at the Blasco Library, but I think that is an accomplishment. And I think his personage and some of the controversies most certainly cast a shadow. I mean, you can't talk to players in the county about county politics without Bretton Davis being the first sentence that comes out of their mouth. Wow. Yeah. And that plays well, I think, nationally, but not locally.
Talking to Dr. Jeffrey Bloodworth, again, kind of getting a feel for how the fall election may project what the midterms look like here, and we're going to get to more of it here in just a bit. It's Talk Erie. Dr. Jeffrey Bloodworth is with us here on the Joel Natale Show. His article, Erie Portends an Ominous Path for Pennsylvania's GOP. And I'm going to state it goes beyond Pennsylvania here. I want you to talk about the party because we have the Erie County GOP where there seems to be, I don't know, there seems to be some, I wouldn't call it strife. I don't know what to call it. Maybe you can identify what's going on with the county Republican Party.
I think this is a strife between the grassroots and the establishment wing, which happens in parties from time to time. So you have grassroots activists who were pulled into political activism by Donald Trump. And then you have old-line Republicans who were already conservatives and already active. And they have a certain way of doing things that works for them. And, you know, the Trump grassroots wants to be in charge of the party, or at least have a greater voice in the party. And that's not only happening in Erie, that's happening everywhere across America between old-line Republicans and the Trump Republicans.
Yeah, and how do you navigate that? Because Trump is MAGA, right? And so not everybody downstream, and we'll talk about folks like Stacey Garrity and, you know, what we look like here for 2026, but not everybody downstream is necessarily as MAGA. I would, like, for example, probably the most prominent Republican in Erie County is Senator Dan Laughlin. You would never call him a MAGA Republican, would you?
No, he's an Erie Republican, right? I mean, somebody who can gets a lot of moderate Democratic voters. This is how he wins. Yeah. So yeah, I mean, and so this is always the problem every party has: is you have to have your grassroots activists who give up their Saturdays and Sundays and a Tuesday night to do all the work, going door to door, stuffing the envelopes. You know, these are people who are really committed and quite driven, but sometimes their passion can alienate, you know, more mainstream, middle of the road voters. And this is the problem, that if Dan Laughlin ran as a MAGA Republican 1,000%, he probably would have lost to Jim Wirtz. But he's able to appeal to a lot of moderate Republicans and moderate Democrats because, you know, he's conservative enough for them, but has crossover appeal. And, you know, Donald Trump was able to, in typical Trump fashion, defy the political physics in which, he almost doesn't care if he alienates moderate Republicans and moderate Democrats, because he brings in a whole bunch of voters who otherwise don't participate, including not a small number of Democrats. He brings over to the Republican side.
The low propensity voter who, you know, I never voted before and I'm voting for Trump.
Yeah, no, that's, you know, Trump makes things understandable. He makes them entertaining. He talks about them in ways that normal people can understand. And meanwhile, the Democrats think that they're conducting a graduate seminar. And it's just politics 101. I mean, you wouldn't compare Trump and FDR to each other in many ways, but I mean, FDR used radio to make a personal connection to people. And people really felt, you know, that he would say, I mean, friends and you are my friends. And there was a real bond that Roosevelt had with American voters. And it makes liberals' head explode when you say this, but the same is true of Trump. I mean, people who vote Trump really feel that he represents them.
Well, and it goes, I'll never forget my mother always saying that when FDR died in, 46, 45, it was like losing her father. I mean, it was a death in the family. It was that tragic. When Trump was shot in Butler, the amount of concern and, panic, I think, was very palatable across the country in a lot of circles.
Yeah, Trump has forged this bond, this emotional bond with a wide swath of voters, independents, Democrats, people who don't normally vote. And this is the gigantic problem that Republicans have in 2026 and 2028. He ain't on the ballot.
No.
And when he's not on the ballot, we saw in 18 and 22, Republicans, those voters don't show up and Republicans lose. Suburban educated people are more likely to be Democrats now. They vote.
Talk about how a party is to function in this kind of context then, because you still have to raise money and you still have to knock on doors. Again, Trump is not on the ballot, but there will be a governor on the ballot. There will be a U.S. congressman and all kinds of other folks that are vying for positions in 2026. How then shall we live with a party either disengaged or not united? How does that work?
Well, we saw that during the Obama years, where Obama was enormously personally popular, put almost nothing into the party itself. And Democrats lost something like 1,000 state legislative seats during his 8 years.
He had no tails, right?
Got destroyed the gubernatorial level because it was all about the presidency, and there was nothing about party building. And we have not seen the same kind of wipeout down the ballot during the Trump years, but it's the same thing. I mean, the party has atrophied under Trump, and you just can't replicate a Donald Trump. And so what I'm not saying is, oh my gosh, the coming Democratic majority and the coming Democratic, millennium is upon us. That is not true. But the Republican Party, I think, understand, and talking to some Republicans, they see this, that if they don't get the Trump grassroots, these people who turn out for Trump, into the party and engaged kind of permanently, what we see in the midterms is when Democrats win is going to happen in the general elections. And so they have to find a way to make the Trump coalition permanent, which is difficult because, Trump's policies in the first year have not been widely popular beyond his base.
Explain that there, because there's still folks that are trying to say, hey, give him a chance. Look at what he picked up with, especially on this affordability issue that seemed to run very well these days with the Democrats, right?
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, presidents can't stop inflation, at the snap of a finger.
But he said he would,
He said he would. And, I mean, this is the thing, is like any good politician you have voters who are angry about X or Y, and then they can go out on the stump and they can go out on the campaign trail, and they're like, well, I don't like the price of eggs, but that person says things I agree with, and they'll put that to the side and still vote for the person with the R next to their name. And without that, celebrity personality able to bring people to these huge events and to forget, these issues and concentrate on the personality. I mean, this is what Democrats had problems with after Obama, and Republicans are going to have real issues with, especially because they haven't done much about inflation. And the economy, we have mixed signals on that. Are we going into recession? Is it just, it's a meh economy. I hear from students today that they say
tough,
that it's a tough job market.
It certainly is. We're talking to Dr. Jeffrey Bloodworth. Stay with us. News is next on Talk Erie. Talk Erie and the Joel Natale Show. We're live from our Kingdom Financial Group studio here at Fifth and State. Also live on Facebook and on YouTube. Dr. Jeffrey Bloodworth is with us. He's a historian and political commentator and researcher from Gannett University. He recently published on the Real Clear Pennsylvania website, Erie Portends an Ominous Path for Pennsylvania's GOP. So let's get to the midterms, and I want to ask about some of the prominent folks that we are seeing here in Pennsylvania that could be impacted by maybe what seemingly was a blue wave in the 2025 elections, and what does that look like on a national level? First off, we got to talk about the governor's race. So the conventional wisdom is that we have a very popular governor, Josh Shapiro. He's a Democrat and should be a shoo-in to win in 2026 on his way to probably a national campaign for president. Is that still the conventional wisdom? Is that still a thing?
Oh, without a doubt. He's surely going to bring in real money and national people to win the governor's race by as much as he can to prove Pennsylvania's the key swing state, and Josh Shapiro wins it by, 55, 56%. This is how you win the White House. So he's not only going to win, right? I mean, this is like the Olympics where you're being kind of judged on style and figure skating. Can he do the triple axel?
Yeah, right.
So he's going to do the triple axel and, jump into song afterwards as a way to prove that he should be the nominee.
There's a couple things with that, though. Hold that thought. I want to jump over to the heir apparent on the Republican side, which is Stacey Garrity. Number one, there's still rumblings that I'm seeing that Doug Mastriano wants to make a run and have a disputed primary. So first off, do you see the GOP in its strength or weakness, being able to tolerate a competitive primary in May?
Look, a competitive primary sometimes sharpens your skills, right? It depends on kind of the tone of the debate. But this tells me that this is a Republican Party where, Donald Trump you can kind of see a little bit of the lame duckness, that he is not the overwhelming power he used to be. This is the test. Can Donald Trump kind of force the Republican Party to at least have a primary that is not terribly divisive? And because I think Donald Trump understands his legacy is premised on Republicans not getting washed out in this midterm. So
do you what's your thoughts about she's a colonel, right? Garrity, the state treasurer. She's already won a statewide race. Seems like probably a pretty formidable candidate.
Seems to me she's the stronger candidate. Mastriano lost, not in a close race to Josh Shapiro. Josh Shapiro surely wants to run against Mastriano again. But I think this is about the Trump grassroots versus maybe more establishment Republicans who vote Trump and like Trump, but they also maybe are a bit more attuned to pragmatic realities. One would say pragmatic reality would have told us in 2015 that Donald Trump never would have been president. That would be their reply, and they're not wrong. But this is a test, I think, between the establishment wing and the grassroots.
Let's go to the Democratic side again. All of the congressmen are up for re-election in 2026. PA 16 is pretty much is going to be a red, solid red. Do you see anybody from the Democratic side, putting up a solid fight against Mike Kelly?
I've spoken to some Democrats who considered the race, and they all privately talk about what an uphill climate is. I mean, there is an announced candidate. He's a veteran from Mercer.
Okay.
Again, he doesn't have a lot of presence and not a lot of money. So my understanding from people who looked at the race is that, just the margins, in the rural counties that are, going to be Republican are just
We always
tough
have to look at the
to
Ron
overcome.
DiNicola race and say, I mean, Ron DiNicola had the trajectory coming out of Erie County to put up a fight against Mike Kelly, and still just kind of wilted as he went south.
My understanding is the DiNicola people thought he won. I mean, they thought he won. People who worked on that campaign, and they were surprised by the numbers. I mean, it tells you the Democratic brand in rural America is just it's extraordinary, historically awful, because the party has not spent any money in rural America in 20 years. I mean, Barack Obama in 2008 was the last Democrat to go to rural America, and then they just turned out the lights and decided it didn't matter. And this is how Trump was able to surprise everybody by rolling up these margins, because Democrats, you hear rumblings that they are going to try to reorganize in rural America. We'll see. So, Republicans have a big obstacle with Trump leaving the scene.
Yeah.
But it's not like the Democrats have their act together. They've ignored rural America since 2008, and rural America votes red because they don't see or hear from Democrats.
I'm interested in who wins in 2026 that will go on to primary John Fetterman. It seems like it's inevitable that Senator Fetterman will be primaried in 2028. Is there a Republican, or excuse me, is there a Democrat, a Connor Lamb, for example, or another prominent Democrat that would, what is it, Kenyatta, or who am I thinking?
Malcolm Kenyatta.
Malcolm Kenyatta.
Connor Lamb, my understanding, I mean, he's doing town halls all over the state.
And again, he's a U.S. representative from down south.
Yeah,
right?
who won in a congressional seat that Trump won 2 times in a row. And so my interpretation of what Connor Lamb is doing is he's laying the groundwork for a Senate run. There's no way John Fetterman wins a Democratic primary. It's going to be a crowded field. And
Holy smokes!
I mean, if you talk to progressive,
so what does he become? An independent? If he wants to run for re-election? I mean, you're breaking news right now.
There's no way he wins a Democratic primary. And if you're John Fetterman and you want to have a political future, you do what Joe Lieberman did, right? You lose the primary, you run as an independent, you break it 3 ways. And then the question is, are Democrats smart enough to nominate somebody like a Connor Lamb with a moderate profile who can win Republican votes and Democrats who vote for Trump? Or are they going to go full progressive Democrat? And so if PA Democrats nominate a progressive, you could see John Fetterman winning that 3-way race. And I think the party poobahs are smart enough to understand that, but can they head it off at the pass? Because I think Connor Lamb's already running. That's why he's going to all the town halls.
And what kind of Republican? Again, we're way ahead of ourselves with 2028. But what kind of Republican would run against Fetterman? I mean, I think about that dais that we had at the manufacturers back in 2022, and you had, McCormick and Oz and Barnett, and who was the one fella downstate or whatever. Again, what would it take to even put up a Republican challenge against Fetterman? Because right now, Fetterman is pretty much the darling of the Republicans here in Pennsylvania.
Yeah, no, if he won the nomination, he'd win in a walk, but he can't win the nomination. I mean, this is the problem these days. How we feel about Fetterman of being heterodox and not marching. It used to be there were all kinds of senators who were like, I don't march in line with the Republicans or Democrats.
I mean, somehow Joe Manchin navigated West Virginia for years. Again, he was a governor and a senator.
Yeah. I mean, you could run against the National Party and be a West Virginia Democrat, or John Hines. You could be, a Pennsylvania Republican. I mean, that was the sign of a healthier Congress, where you had real ideological orthodoxy and centrists who were Republicans and Democrats who, we forget, it was in George Bush's first term. I mean, the signature piece of domestic legislation was co-authored by Ted Kennedy and Orrin Hatch from Utah, who were friends, who always disagreed, but they found some things that they agreed upon. What we need in Congress is more intellectual, heterodoxy, meaning people just, instead of believing everything that the Democratic Party tells you to, that you vote your district, you vote your state. And the same for Republicans. And there's too much down the line orthodoxy, which only makes our politics so tribal and ugly. That is not a reflection of how actual Erieites or Pennsylvanians kind of live their lives.
Let's broaden out then what 2026 might look like. Right now, you have in the House of Representatives in Congress just a very few votes, and if history is prologue, the Republicans will be out of power, at least in the House of Representatives. And so that just means instantly a ton of more investigations, kind of maybe a total halt to President Trump's agenda. Of course, most of his agenda has been through executive action. I don't know how he pulls that off, though, with a divided Congress, even if the Republicans somehow hold the Senate, right?
Yeah, look, if Democrats just win the House, I think sadly all you're going to see is investigation after investigation. And that is the job of Congress, to hold the executive branch responsible. At the same time, I think that's not what people are saying when they're voting, against the party in power, is that they want to have an endless cycle of subpoenas and congressional committees.
Right. So basically, it is between now and January 2nd of 2027 that President Trump, that's basically going to be the end of the Trump administration. That's when the real lame duck hits, doesn't it?
Yeah, no, this has been the theme over the past 30 years, is that a president has the first 2 years until they lose Congress to actually do their governing. And then the next 2 years are about investigations, which only feeds a cycle of people being kind of more fed up with politics. Mm-hmm. And then they want an outsider to come in and clean it up, with rinse, wash, repeat again and again. And maybe the Democrats will win the Senate, and maybe you can pass legislation that might curb the power of the executive. I think that would be a pragmatic response to what many people see as a presidency that's too powerful. Mm-hmm. I think there's a bipartisan agreement on that the presidency has become too powerful, and Congress needs to reassert its constitutional authority. Unfortunately, I think what we'll see are investigations, because that's how members of Congress, they get to preen on camera, they get to fundraise off of that, and people like them more.
What do you think the odds are of the Senate in 2026 going to the D's?
I think people shouldn't underestimate the wave that's building, and it's not a pro-Democratic Party wave. People are mad at folks who are in power, because if they look at their pocketbooks, they look at inflation, they don't see a tangible improvement in their lives. Whether that's fair or not, that's right. How they see it. And I think the Senate could flip. I think we're going to be surprised. I think Democrats are making a mistake by not investing in Pennsylvania 16. I mean, this is the kind of election where even a Mike Kelly can go down. In 1994, when I was in college, the Speaker of the House, Tom Foley, went down. Nobody saw that coming. So wave elections have a way of, washing in people that you never thought possible.
You're absolutely right. But if you are a Trump advocate, if you are wanting the Republicans to stay in power, they have about 6 months right now to make a fundamental change in people's attitudes. I mean, remember somehow in 82, for example, it was kind of a bloodbath because Reagan had taken over and we had horrific economy, interest rates in 20%, and you had Paul Volcker, pounding at the Fed. President Trump would have to totally pivot from his preoccupation with foreign affairs to a more affordability agenda, kind of like he promised in the campaign.
And so for Democrats, instead of spiking the football right now, it's as simple as the Supreme Court stepping in and stopping Trump on his tariffs right? If they rule in a
Yeah.
particular way, the tariffs come off the board. And that would do a significant kind of role in perhaps rolling back prices and reducing inflation.
So taking tariffs or greatly reducing them.
Yeah, and that is something that the Supreme Court could easily do. One could foresee the Supreme Court acting, the tariffs going away, and there being a rebound in the markets, because however you feel about tariffs, the markets want surety. And if the court acts and the tariffs are taken down, the markets will rebound, and you could see an economy rebound. Trump could claim credit, because everybody likes his success,
Right.
and so you could foresee the Republicans avoiding a real washout. Although in 18 and 22 that didn't happen. When Trump isn't on the ballot, Republicans have a really hard time, and this is where I think the grassroots are saying you need more Trump energy at all levels of the party to kind of maintain, that kind of being able to talk about issues in an entertaining way that people understand, that will drive, local turnout and national turnout. I think that's what the Trump people I talk to in Erie County would say, is that, you can't just rely on Trump every 4 years. And they're right about that.
Yeah, I mean, Mike Kelly seems to be a pretty strong campaigner. I'm not sure he's bringing Trump energy, though.
No,
right?
most certainly not.
Yeah.
And look, in this kind of environment, if the economy, if people don't feel like a real change in their pocketbooks, and people have a sense that Donald Trump is focusing more on foreign policy than domestic issues, this is an election where that could really hurt someone like a Mike Kelly, who has a name brand and people like him in this district, but he could be washed out because he's in power and people are trying to send a message.
Talk about foreign entanglements for a second here. Again, what do we bring? The H.W. Bush. The Gerald Ford is in the Caribbean, right? And we still don't have a peace deal, although we're working hard on Russia-Ukraine. Could, let's say, a peace deal for Ukraine, for example, be a positive for the incumbents, and some kind of settlement of some of these issues with let's say in Venezuela or what have you? What do you think? I mean,
look, if Trump,
or do people even pay attention to this stuff?
How much is foreign? Ask George H.W. Bush how much foreign policy helped him in 1992.
Not a much. Yeah.
But one could imagine. Look, if he were to really pull a hat trick and have a peace deal that the Ukrainians actually want, between Russia and Ukraine, I don't foresee that. But let's imagine he did, and then let's imagine, this strange shadow war near Venezuela ends. And also, inflation is tamped down. I mean, look, Trump and Republicans could campaign on promises made, promises kept. It's not too late.
Yeah, he ran the table, basically.
Yeah, absolutely. And look, betting against Donald Trump, pulling a rabbit out of his hat, that's not a sure bet, because he's done it before. Like in 16 and in 24, he did it. And he ran a closer race in 2020 than I thought he would. But he's not on the ballot.
Yes, you keep reminding us, Dr. Bloodworth, he's not on the ballot. So it really has to do with the singular person here. So, all right. So let's face it. After next November, it's all on for 2028. Do you see that in the next 12 months, J.D. Vance, Marco Rubio will be elevating their brands on the R side, and is that going to be AOC and Gavin Newsom on the D side?
Well, look, they are going to be trying to elevate their brands. Apparently, J.D. Vance and Marco Rubio really don't like each other, and there's a real rivalry there. But I think what we know,
who should be on top?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Who's the heir apparent? And Donald Trump doesn't want an heir apparent. I mean, this is what we know.
No.
I mean,
he's playing the Apprentice all day long with
goodness.
those two, I think.
Yes, absolutely. The books that will be written about the rivalry and how Trump goads them on. And no president likes to leave the limelight. Ask Bill Clinton. But Donald Trump least of all. And grooming a successor, I mean, I think for Trump, he's going to think, well, maybe this builds, intrigue and interest.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, you're going to see Marco Rubio and J.D. Vance. I suspect the Republican nominee is not going to be anybody in Washington. It's going to be yet another outsider. Trump voters, what they say, right, is that they don't like typical politicians. And Marco Rubio is a pretty typical politician. I mean, he talks like a politician. His whole career has been one. J.D. Vance less so. But I think it'll be someone from outside of Washington. Vivek Ramaswamy comes to mind. Potentially somebody who's
what about
not,
Florida?
Yeah, Ron DeSantis.
Ron DeSantis, yeah.
Somebody from the states. I think probably someone who's not a career politician. Megyn Kelly. I mean, again, the entertainment wing of the party. Don't forget. I mean, I think they're going to have be a really viable challenger, somebody with no experience. I mean, I think Donald Trump is not a one-off in that, and so I wouldn't be surprised if somebody from a podcast or TV is the Republican nominee.
Yeah, that's where the pain from the loss of Charlie Kirk really comes to play, because they had aspirations for him.
Most certainly
on the D side or on the R side.
That's where the real passion comes from, and the Trump base is somebody who's talking to them and really in touch with how to communicate with average voters and bring people who aren't into the who aren't regular voters, make them regular. And I think this is the point of Trump Republicans, is that they're saying, after Trump, we need to do more of that, is what Republicans are saying. And even at the local level, and that's my sense of some Erie Republicans who, how you turn the page from Trump is you don't return to the pre-Trump era, you do more of the Trumpism.
Yeah, it's not going away.
Yeah.
Dr. Jeffrey Bloodworth will be watching you in Real Clear, Pennsylvania, and the other places that your writing is showing up. Appreciate it very much, sir.
Thanks for having me on.
You got it. It is 5 minutes in front of 5.